Testing? Okay. Thank you very much. 안녕하세요. I'm from Hong Kong, so I speak English, but I can speak slower. It's been my honor to come to Korea again. I think before, like 3 years before, I've been in Korea the first time for our Kubernetes community event as well. It's so happy to come here because I love Korean barbecue and shoju. Okay, today I'm gonna talk about like cloud native trend. In CNCF, we have every year we have cloud native trend report every year. So we go around the world asking companies and end users from US, from Europe, from Asia Pacific, and know about what is exactly the trend right now. So in CNCF, we started, since 2015. When I joined Linux Foundation, this is my first project, CNCF. And then it's been a while. Right now, a lot of people is talking about not just Kubernetes, and also some of the projects like Istio, right now is in CNCF. Some other, Argo, CI/CD projects. And when you look at CNCF landscape, it's a huge landscape. And I can't even count how many related ecosystem projects in there. But in CNCF nowadays, we have about 162 projects. Not just Kubernetes, as I mentioned, Prometheus, Argo, and then we have 3 layers of project. One is sandbox, the other one is incubating, and the other one which is actually graduate projects. So it all depends on whether this project is adopted by a lot of end user in production, or this project has a huge diversity, which means it's not just you to contribute to this project, but also a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of developers, they also contribute into these projects. So right now, there are about 205K contributors in CNCF around the world from about 189 countries. So when we count, the number of contribution is about 13.1 million contribution. And thank you so much, developers. Thank you. And since then, a lot of people, they're using cloud native right now. When I look at the main reason that people are using cloud native technologies, it comes into like 4 major points. One is the better resources. I believe everybody knows about that. You can have a better resources utilization. But the main key reason for people using cloud native, or the original idea why CNCF exists, is because we want to break through all those cloud resources to our end users, to our enterprise customers. Because before that, if you want to jump from one cloud providers to other cloud providers, it's not possible. So imagine if you have a big application, you need a lot of flexibility and resiliency to jump from your private cloud to public cloud, or even using multi-cloud solution. Before, you can't do that. So this is the original idea why CNCF exists. Right now, if you have an application running on the cloud, you can go wherever you want. Jump from private cloud to multi-cloud and to hybrid cloud. So this is something we all want to do, and we have succeeded. And also, with a lower risk and also a high deployment rate, it actually comes with the idea that if I want to match a customer's demand right now, I need to change my application frequently. So in cloud native technologies, you can do that. Before that, if you want to update an application, or you have a new function in the application, you may need to take like a few months. But right now, it's talking about 1 hour. Even I see some example within few minutes. So this is what we can do right now. This is all your contribution and make it come true. There are a lot of cloud native end users right now. I'm not just talking about those internet or e-commerce early adopters customers. I'm also talking about some traditional customers. I see a lot of customers from government, from utilities, like electricity company, like Adidas, sports shoes, even military. And I also see a lot of end user from satellite, from oil company, from very traditional enterprise companies. So look at this list. This is just one of, this is actually our end user community logos. You can see like all those car companies, they are there. And so it's actually widely adopted cloud native technologies. But when we look at the trend report, let me, hold on a second. It's really cloud native everywhere. Let me, hold this later and tell you the answer later. But before that, I want to tell you this. In 2022, in our CNCF report, right now, containers, everybody knows, is the normal. But the future is WebAssembly, because a lot of people, they're using serverless solution right now. WebAssembly become a very popular, and we see that. We also ask a lot of questions from our end users. They all see that WebAssembly is the future. So when you see CNCF projects, there are actually a lot of WebAssembly projects comes into CNCF, and this is something that you may want to consider to see how to deploy or develop your application in the future, WebAssembly. Okay, when we come to cloud native, it's everywhere. So when we look at how many people is actually using containers in the organization, in last year, because before that, we asked differently. In last year, in 2022, we asked, are you using containers in all your application? Remember, all, because you want to know, is cloud native everywhere? So that's why we asked this question differently. So we see that result is about 44% of the developers, they use containers in most of all production application, 44%. And there about 35% use it in a few production area, and about 9% in pilot. It may be different than what you think, because we always market that, okay, cloud native is everywhere. But when we look at the trend, when we look at the reality, is every application using cloud native, there's about 44%. So we still have a long way to go. Even though I just mentioned about there's so many end users, they're using a different industry, traditional company, they're using it, but there's still a long way to go. But how long is it? I don't know, but I think it will be very soon. So there's still 62% of the enterprise. They are not using cloud native technologies or containers in all applications. The reason why we ask them in this way is because we want to know, are you using just cloud native technologies? But anyway, 30% are using containers, cloud native technologies in all the applications. So that's a good sign. So it actually creates a market for the cloud native industry, or the SI or the vendors in this cloud native ecosystem. How we can solve this issue, because there's 60% they're not using in all of the application. What is the problem? Why they're not using it? There are two different things that actually prevent them to use cloud native technologies in all of the application. The first one, very simple, lack of training. As you see in cloud native ecosystem, there are a lot of projects. Kubernetes, that just mentioned, right? In CNCF, about 160 plus projects in CNCF. So the complexity of deploying cloud native technologies in all applications is actually something that we have to solve. So lack of training is the first one. The second one, when it comes to using cloud native in everything, we see this issue, security. That is another issue why people, they're not adopting in all of your production. Security issues. So when you jump into security, there are different areas. The first thing is how to do open source compliance. It's a very old story, right? When you use open source, you need to compare, your open source license, open source compliance. Are they using Apache 2.0, or are they using GPL, or using, a BSD license? So this is one of the things that people need to think about. So I see a lot of companies right now, they start to have OSPO, Open Source Program Office, even in end-user companies. One of the key areas for Open OSPO is to help the companies to do open source compliance. If you don't do that, you may have some legal issues, because for example, like GPL, how you actually open it, how you're actually talking about what kind of license they're using it. In our phone, right? When you look at the phone, so they have a legal notice. They list down all the open source license. So this is one key thing. And the other one is in open source, there are a lot of security vulnerabilities that we need to deal with. One of the key things is that I see a lot of companies, they don't even know how many open source they're using. Not just about cloud native, but in general, in open source. So how many open source they're using, what kind of security vulnerabilities you have associated with these open source projects, this is another key. But of course, in open source, if this project has a lot of what we call it eyeballs, then the security issue will be solved fairly quickly than other commercial softwares. But this is nothing. But the key thing is we have to know what is the SBOM, which is software bill of material. Okay, this is something that people are looking for because we're using a lot more cloud-native technology, which is about 90% are open source. So these are the key things: security and compliance challenge. Okay, so when it comes to these challenges, I will go back to the training. Excuse me? Okay, I will go back to the training part later, how to train, how to in CNCF, in cloud native. But when you come to the next trend, a lot of people, they're asking GitOps. In GitOps, which is using Git and DevOps together, we see that if those companies, they use more cloud native technologies, they will use more GitOps. I'm not sure whether in Korea, you hear that a lot. I think in a lot of countries, we see GitOps a lot. So this is something exactly because in CNCF, we have like Flux, we have Argo projects, which is actually really related to GitOps. So this is also another trend that you can get. And the other thing, which is the release cycle. So when I talk about the benefit of using cloud-native technologies, is because we can have more number of deployment, faster, better, and this is actually the result. More than like 76%, if they're using more cloud-native technologies, they can actually have release like every day, daily. The reason why you need to have daily release is because you need to look at the customer demand and make it happen, just like one click. So this is the original idea of cloud-native technologies. And you can deploy application based on your customer need on the fly. So this is something that a lot of companies, why they use cloud-native technology, and it's also the result of using cloud-native technologies, which is the release cycle. Okay, when you look at the size, there are about 50% of CNCF end user, they have more than 10 Kubernetes clusters. It means it's actually a huge deployment, all right? So more than half our respondents, they use more than 10 clusters. So when you look at the size of the application or size of the company, the size of containers, it's become bigger and bigger and bigger. So we see a lot of big deployments right now. Not just small, deployments, but actually more than half are actually big deployments. All right, so look at the cloud, what they're using, what kind of clouds they're using. then actually hybrid cloud is the result, hybrid cloud. So we talk about, remember that the original idea of CNCF is to break it down, break the rules, and let the end users use a lot of cloud resources. So this is a result. Right now, hybrid cloud is a trend. It means you can switch from private cloud to public cloud, or from public cloud providers to different providers, like AWS to Google to Microsoft, or to some cloud providers in here. So this is actually the result of the world. Hybrid cloud. People are actually looking for more solutions and more like multi-cloud, hybrid cloud management system as well. We see a lot of projects in CNCF actually handling that. So this is something you guys can take a look. On some new technology adoption, so we have this result, Surface Mesh. I think you guys know about Istio just came into CNCF. It's been, I think 3 years of discussion of bringing them in CNCF, and finally, we got that in CNCF Istio projects. And the other one, which is actually serverless architecture. A lot of people, they're using serverless. How many? They're about 30% from last year to 53%. More than half people, they're looking at serverless architecture. And the other thing is Surface Proxy, which is also another new technologies, and also from 34% to 71%, which is a big jump. So Surface Proxy. So look at this. These are the market trend. So when you look at that, you can actually develop your solution based on that. All right, Kubernetes. Let's look at Kubernetes. How can we forget Kubernetes here? Kubernetes right now has become the OS of a cloud, which means instead of just using it in the application workload, you use it in other ops workloads. For example, like pipeline, the messaging, the security controls. So it right now is actually become the cloud OS. So this is something that we can see. In terms of application, we see a lot of applications running on the cloud-native technology. For example, ChatGPT, right? AI application, like edge computing. So these are the things, even like blockchain technologies. Right now, they're actually building on cloud-native technology, and underneath is actually Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is right now become, I would say, another Linux. The future, it all depends on cloud-native right now, but when you look at the cloud-native landscape, a lot of companies, a lot of new logos, a lot of new projects in this cloud-native landscape. I really recommend you guys to look at this cloud-native landscape so that you can see which one is open source projects, which one is the certified Kubernetes platform, which one is actually KCSP. So I will talk about that. So a lot of ecosystem. People are building stuff on this cloud-native CNCF ecosystem. So we list down not just open source projects, but also all the related cloud-native projects in CNCF landscape. Okay, look at the end user. So when we ask the end user, what is the most concern of using cloud-native technologies? One of the answer is, I don't even know what kind of projects I should use, because a lot of projects, either they're in sandbox, or I don't even know how many companies are using it. So that's why we, CNCF, had this research to show the end user in this radar. We have adopt, we have trial, we have assess. Adopt, which means early stage, right? Assess and trial. So we actually tell the end user what is the maturity of this project. Whether you should use it, you can actually look at this radar. So this is something I really recommend you guys to look at. It's in our website. It's all publicly available. Okay, back to the training. Remember that one of the key challenges is to really how to train our talents, how to train more cloud-native developers. So in CNCF right now, we have 6 certification, and also a lot of training program. Some actually free. For example, introduction to serverless, introduction to Surface Mesh is all free. So we have free training course. We have some training course actually tied with the certification, which is like, for example, like CKA, Certified Kubernetes Administrator. So for CKA, when I still remember, when we start to promote this CKA, we talked to those cloud companies, we talked to some end users, and they said that it's actually really good because if anybody got CKA certified, they would just hire them right away. Because this is a very hands-on certification, hands-on exams. You don't actually have multiple choice, which is actually a hands-on certification, CKA. So we have CKAD, which is actually for the application developers. We also have CKS, because people looking at security challenge, right? So we have CKS to train those companies how to actually deal with Kubernetes security challenges, so CKS. And one of the things that even you're not code writers, but you are like the product managers, you are the CTO, you want to know how cloud native can benefit your companies. So this is somehow the KCNA can give you the answer. How we can use cloud native technologies. We're not talking about all those projects, but the concept of using cloud native technology. Okay? And then we have recently Prometheus, because Prometheus, apart from Kubernetes, Prometheus is the most deployed projects right now in cloud native. And also we have a KCSA. So look at this certification, train your developers, train your employees to be certified. Okay? Because there are not a lot CKA right now in the world. Okay, the other things, also back to the challenge. As an end user, how can I find a good supplier or a good service provider for me to deploy cloud native technologies? So we have this program for a long time. And there are a lot of KCSP, the full name is called Kubernetes Certified Service Provider. So we actually, one of the requirements is to have more than 3 CKA in your companies, and you can apply as a KCSP to show you have expertise in your companies to help those end users. So this is KCSP. There are about 240 plus in the world, KCSP. Look at this logo. So when you talk to your SI, your providers, you can ask them, are you certified? Do you have any CKA in your companies? Are you KCSP? So hopefully we can give you partly the answer of whether this SI, whether this service provider has the capability. Okay, and the other one which is quite important, which is called Certified Kubernetes Conformance. So remember, Kubernetes is right now the de facto standard of association, but there's so many Kubernetes versions in the world, okay? Because it's Apache license, I can actually use it. I can fork another Kubernetes version and put it in a GitHub and tell you, hey, this is my version. But as an end user, you need to know this version will be compatible with the original open source version, which means support all the API. You don't want to lose all the other functions in the future. So you need to ask your providers, is your Kubernetes version certified? So we launched this certification program to give you the answer. If this is certified, it's actually compatible, supports all the API required in the future. You don't lose all those other good features in other. And also, we also provide that there will be no vendor locked in. This is really key, really important in cloud native. So look at this certified Kubernetes program. There are 100 plus certified Kubernetes distribution in the world right now. The last, but not least, but please join our end user community because you want to know other end users, how they use Kubernetes, how they use cloud native technologies. What are the challenges? How they actually do deployment, what kind of case study they're having. So this is a really key. It's all free. You can join end user community right now. Click the link, join it, and also participate in the call as well. So we have, as you see in the slide, we have Apple there, we have Audi there, we have Adidas there. We have a lot of companies around the world to talk about how they use cloud native technologies. And thank you so much. Thank you for having me today. Thank you.